Breaking news. Can Ukraine's defensive strikes defeat Russia's offensive strikes? Kyiv's ongoing counter-offensive has been slow to start and painful to follow, but it is finally starting to make significant gains in the region around the Crimean Peninsula. The battle for Ukraine has been bloodier, costlier, and more time-consuming than many predicted when efforts to recapture territories began earlier this summer. Kyiv's ongoing counter-offensive has been slow to start and painful to follow, but it is finally starting to make significant gains in the region around the Crimean Peninsula. The battle for Ukraine has been bloodier, costlier, and more time-consuming than many predicted when efforts to recapture territories began earlier this summer. The number of people killed on both sides is staggering, especially given how quickly this war has progressed. Moscow has also lost a substantial amount of military hardware. Both the Ukrainian and Russian armies are continuing to fight despite suffering heavy casualties. While Ukrainian forces have only retaken a fraction of the territory Russia now controls, they have significantly hampered Russia's ability to wage war. After beginning their invasion in February 2022, the Russian military has been making do with dwindling supplies of weapons ever since. Russian forces lack the resources and production capabilities to keep up with the steady pace of their invasion because of international economic sanctions against the Kremlin. Moscow is falling behind in many areas, including main battle tanks, airplanes, and missiles. According to data compiled from open sources, Russia has lost at least 2,000 tanks in the last year and a half of conflict. Moscow's tanks, from the newer T-90s to the older T-55s and T-72s of the Soviet era, have been destroyed by the Ukrainians. Since February 2022, the United States and its NATO allies have given Ukraine billions of dollars in military aid, which unquestionably aids in the country's defensive efforts. Particularly effective in wiping out Moscow's tank force have been American-made FGM-148 Javelin and HIMARS. There is video evidence of Ukraine's own loitering munitions destroying Russian artillery on the battlefield. Attacks on Crimea from Kiev increase. Kyiv is carefully targeting the invaders' primary logistics hub, the Crimean Peninsula, which will reduce Russia's ability to resupply some of its weapons and equipment. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014 and subsequently annexed its territory. This peninsula clearly represents a great deal to the people of Kyiv. After Russia's annexation, the peninsula became an important transportation hub. Without the Crimean Peninsula, Russia would be unable to keep a military presence in the northwest Black Sea or supply its troops with incoming shipments. Russia's control over the region is being challenged by Ukraine's persistent attacks on the peninsula. Ukrainian forces attacked a warship and submarine in the Russian Black Sea Fleet's Sevastopol base earlier this month. British defense officials say the attack, almost certainly functionally destroyed the Minsk landing ship and likely suffered catastrophic damage to the Kilo-class submarine stationed in Rostov-on-Don. Ukrainian officials have stated that the attack was especially devastating because Russia no longer manufactures the type of landing ship that was destroyed in the barrage. Kyiv launched a second operation the day after the Sevastopol attack, damaging 2 ships from Russia's Project 22160 fleet. A month ago, Kiev used a prototype Sea drone to attack the bridge between Russia and Crimea. This attack, and the possibility of more like it, is a major cause for concern for the Kremlin because the Kerch Bridge is an essential supply link for Russia's ongoing military operation in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have recently claimed responsibility for an attack on a Crimean airbase. Moscow claims it downed every missile fired in the barrage, but Kiev says it didn't. The Ukrainian intelligence agency has claimed that the base housed at least a dozen combat aircraft and portable air defense systems. There has been no independent confirmation of either country's claims by the media. Charting the development of Kyiv. Kyiv is making strides not only in Crimea, but also on other battlefields. Earlier this month, Ukrainian forces were able to bypass Russia's initial defenses near the town of Robotyne by employing dismounted infantry. Trent Mall, director of analysis at the Defense Intelligence Agency, was quoted in an interview published by The Economist as saying, After reaching Russia's second line of defenses, it is a realistic possibility that Ukrainian troops will be able to break through all of Russia's defensive lines in southern Ukraine by the end of 2023. Moll cautioned that this may prove challenging due to a lack of ammunition and deteriorating weather conditions. Had we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, I would have been slightly more pessimistic, Moll said to The Economist. Their progress on the second belt of defense is pretty significant. ATACMS in Ukraine? Policy toward ATACMS in Ukraine has been changed under the Biden administration. The White House has been adamant since the beginning of the invasion that it will not supply Kyiv with the longer-range cruise missiles. Kyiv, however, will soon be getting these powerful weapons thanks to recent talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his American counterpart, Joe Biden. Kyiv has had some minor successes in its counteroffensive, but the war is still ongoing and the tide could turn at any time.